Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of MC Commute. You guys know the deal. Today we're going to be riding to the Motorcyclist Magazine office in Southern California on Honda's 2018 CB1000R. So let's throw in the helmet and go for a ride. Well, there she is, guys. Honda's 2018 CB1000R. This is an all-new bike for Honda for the 2018 model year. I know it's 2019 right now, but this is a late release 2018 machine. And it's categorized as a neo-sports bike. What's a neo-sports bike? Well, it's a combination of a naked street fighter kind of bike and a cafe racer contemporary bike. Think, XSR 900, MT10. You get the style and the performance in an upright street fighter-like package. Really like the attention to detail Honda's done with this motorcycle. They spent a lot of time working on the aesthetics. Look how much metal is on that bike. American Honda says, in fact, only 6 pieces of the body are made of plastic. The biggest part would be that front fender. So not a lot of use of plastic, a lot of use of metals. You can see the nice finishing, the machining on the top of the cylinder head. I'm sorry, on top of the cylinder, on the engine cases, engine covers, the aluminum here on the radiator shrouds by the tank. A very well sculpted motorcycle. This thing's a head turner. You're going to ride this motorcycle and people are going to be amazed that it's a Honda. Let's hop on it and go for a ride. Okay, here we are, guys. Let's fire up this bad boy. Let's make sure our engine setting's in the right mode. We've got Sport, which is for more spirited riding. Standard, which is always a good mode for just around town riding. Rain riding mode for riding in inclement weather. And then my favorite, user mode, where you can adjust the Honda torque control, which is their fancy word for traction control, engine brake, and power. We're going to disable traction control because we don't need that. And we'll leave engine braking at max and power at max too. Let's go for a spin. We spent some time aboard this motorcycle at the official American Honda press introduction for this machine in Santa Monica, California last fall, and was really happy with the way this machine rode. Was not a big fan of the previous generation CB1000R. Thing looked kind of cool, but it was a pooch. Couldn't get out of its own way. This bike is way more adept at riding for a good time, for an enjoyable, relatively powerful riding experience. That's what this bike does. It's a real street fighter. It's a real street fighter that looks cool too. This bike is powered by Honda's 2006-2007 generation CBR1000RR inline-4 engine. In the previous video I said it was the 2008 through 2016 version, but that was incorrect. It's technically the longer stroke version, and that's not a bad thing. More stroke equals more torque generally, and this thing jumps off the line really well. It's got upwards of 50 foot-pound of torque from right below 4,000 RPM. Peaks out at almost 70. So this thing's got some grunt. It doesn't have as much grunt as other liter size naked bikes, but it's definitely not bad. It definitely has some pull. On our dyno, this thing spun up to the tune of 122 horsepower, 122 horsepower out of the back Bridgestone Batlax S22 tire. I'm sorry, S21 tire. Just rode the S22 tire recently, so that thing was on my mind. This thing has the S21 rubber front and back, and those tires work really well. You can ride them on the track, you can ride them on the street, you can ride them in the wet. They perform really well everywhere. Great tire from Bridgestone. They're really doing big things in the street and sport tire category right now, so props to them. This 2006-2007 gen engine is kind of interesting because when it was in the CBR1000RR application, the throttle system was a conventional, cable actuated throttle system where it was a cable that linked the right twist grip and the engine throttle bodies. This thing has throttle by wire, TBW, which is Honda's acronym for ride-by-wire. So instead of having a conventional cable to connect the throttle bodies and the throttle, it's actually done electronically. So when you're twisting this thing, you're twisting a sensor that tells the throttle body to open, and that's how it works. So believe it or not, Honda in the motorcycle division hasn't really been doing throttle by wire or ride by wire for very long. I think they first started doing that system in a production bike, of course. I'm sure for MotoGP they've been doing it forever, but in a production bike they started with the 2017 CB1000R, and initially the throttle response on that bike, it really wasn't that good, to be honest with you. I was actually surprised that they let a bike go into production that had that many hiccups in it. Well, on this bike they've retrofitted fly-by-wire onto this engine, and it works pretty darn good. On-off throttle response is splendid. It's very accurate. Only time where it feels a little bit not totally organic is when you're kind of doing wheelies and really giving her the beans. But to be honest, you kind of get used to the throttle. You just need to spend, a couple miles on the bike and kind of get used to the way the twist grip feels. We're in top gear right now, 6th gear at 62 miles per hour. This engine does deliver some vibration through the controls. I'm actually surprised by how much vibration I'm feeling through the handlebar. Foot pegs a little bit too, but not a lot, but mainly the handlebar. It's almost un-Honda-like how much vibration there is. I wouldn't say it's terrible, but it could be a little bit better. Really like this dash display. It's not only functional, but it looks really nice. It's a little bit small. The tachometer could be a little bit bigger. Obviously, speedometer is really easy to read. Fuel gauge is kind of tiny, but enough to see. You've got your Honda torque control setting there, represented by a T. Engine brake by EB, power by P. You manipulate the controls via the switch gear here, this mode and select. You can switch maps on the fly. You push mode and that changes it from the top setting where you change the actual individual settings to where you can see the trip meter and fuel statistics and that kind of stuff. Again, it looks pretty slick, but it's pretty small. Would like to see the instrument panel a little bit larger in future iterations, and heck, while we're at it, why not make it color? Not saying that this backlit negative monochrome isn't good, but color is always better. I do like the ergonomics of this bike. Handlebar has a pretty sporty bend. This is a pretty sporty feeling motorcycle. The shape of the fuel tank is not only does the fuel tank look cool, but it's shaped so properly where you can really squeeze it with your knees, and it feels very slim between the rider's legs. Like, this is an inline-four 1000cc motorcycle. It's no small bike, but because the tank is shaped so nicely, it actually feels smaller than what it is. And the handling, wow, this bike handles very nicely. Suspension's a little bit bouncy. Not terrible, but definitely a little bit bouncy. There's no electronic quick shifter. That is a OE accessory available through American Honda. To pay extra for that, but they do offer it. Transmission cuts through each of its 6 gears very well. Gearing doesn't seem abnormally low, nor does it seem abnormally high. It's pretty good for general around town and sport riding. As a reminder, guys, we're riding in California, and it's legal to lane split here. So we're going to take advantage of that law and do some lane splitting safely, of course. This lady is in both lanes right now, so we'll just wait for her to obey the law, and then we'll pass her legally. Right now I have the front brake lever in position 6, so it's closest to the handlebar. Got a nice radial mount master cylinder that pushes fluid through a pair of 4-piston radial mount calipers. This bike comes standard with always on ABS, so you can't disengage ABS. It's always on. Brakes work good. They're not the sharpest brakes I've ridden in a Street Fighter, but they're not the dullest either. Give them a B+ in that department. Honda says they tuned the engine for additional sound through the airbox, but to be honest, this bike doesn't have much of a growl. It's a pretty quiet running engine. Would like to see a little bit more, I guess, pleasing exhaust note in intake roar from this bike. There's other motorcycles in this category that sound a little bit meaner, but we'll forgive Honda just because it looks so good. We touched on the heavy use of premium materials like metal, but the way the LED headlights designed, it looks really good. Like, it looks good, it works really well. Even though the engine vibrates a little bit, the mirrors they have a little bit of buzz in them, but not bad. They work fairly well, give you a nice view of what's going on behind you. This bike does offer suspension adjustment. So even on the standard $13,000 model, there's some suspension adjustment. We haven't really messed with it that much, but you know, based on the fact that a bike is a little bit bouncy, you could slow down the rebound. I don't think that would be a bad modification. It's cool that Honda offers it. They let you do it. Oh, I'm speeding. There I am again. These bikes are so quick. Let's get down to the speed limit, guys. 50 miles per hour. If we had cruise control, that would certainly help things, keeping things at 50 miles per hour, but this bike doesn't have cruise control. So we'll just have to ride it the manual style. On the scales, this bike weighs 467 pounds. 467 pounds with a full tank of gas. 17 pounds lighter than its predecessor. It's kind of funny because Honda switched. So the previous CB1000R had an aluminum frame. This bike doesn't have aluminum frame. It went back to steel, yet it's still lighter. Really like that this bike has a signature, well, not signature now, but it used to be signature, a single-sided aluminum swing arm. It's very pretty. Shows off the cast alloy 10-spoke wheels. Makes the bike look real elegant. And the nice thing about this bike is, we mentioned it before, even though it's a liter sized naked bike, it doesn't feel huge. It actually feels pretty petite. And that's the Honda way in the open class division. They've always had, you know, their liter class sport bike, their CBR1000RR has always been a real compact, petite machine. Same thing with the CBR600RR. This is a smooth riding motorcycle. Aside from the vibration, it's pretty comfy. I like that it's got a little bit more sporty ergonomics than I recall with its predecessor. You know, after all, these motorcycles has 123 horsepower at the back tire. You're going to be zipping around. If you're going to be zipping around, you may as well be zipping around with sporty control. Allow you to really use all that power and wield it in a commanding way. Alright guys, let's give her the beans. Oh, I'm breaking the speed limit again. Sorry guys. I had to do it. I had to open her up for a second. Don't tell on me. If you guys want to know more about the CB1000R, the 2018 version, make sure to log on to cycleworld.com. There's a written review there. There is a first ride review video on the Motorcyclist Magazine YouTube channel, which is Motorcyclist Mag. I'm sure you guys know what that is because you're watching a video right now. I'm very excited for the wheelie test. I think it's going to be a little bit challenging though because of the throttle. It is a little bit interesting feeling when you get into the power with the front wheel in the air. but we'll give her a shot. The back it in test I'm not feeling very good about, on the other hand, though. Again, this motorcycle has ABS on the front brakes and the rear brake, and that's not going to allow us to back her in. We'll do a pre-backer in here. Yeah, we did a pre-backer in there, and she didn't want to back in. So for $13,000, would I buy this CB1000R? Well, it looks awesome. It's got decent power now, handles pretty well. It does really look good, but I need a little bit more performance out of my liter-sized naked bike. I also need to be able to turn off all the electronics. It's got to have that feature, so I would pass on this bike. But it is a nice bike, and it does look cool, and it rides well too, and I'm happy Honda paid some attention to the class and did something different. They went a little bit different direction than the other motorcycle brands out there, and they have a cool bike with the CB1000R. It is a nice bike. All right, guys, let's give her hell. Whoa, whoa, whoa! Yeah, that throttle is definitely pretty gnarly. Yeah, throttle is snappy. All right, backer and test. No backer in, guys. No backer in. Alright, we give her a C for the wheelie test and an F for the backer in test. Alright, my favorite part, guys. Q&A. Alright, here we are. Motorcyclists Online on Instagram. Give us a follow if you haven't already. Alright, here we go. Where are we at? Alright, guys, let's answer some questions. Vince Sileo asks, how bad is the vibration in the handlebars and foot pegs? It vibrates a lot, I'm going to tell you that. The engine vibrates quite a bit. It should vibrate less. One of the few squawks on this bike. So, it's not terrible, but it's definitely a little bit annoying. I give it a C-. Another great question from T. Sanchez. Nice name, T. Sanchez. Would you get this over the Triumph Triple R, Ducati 821, or KTM 790 Duke? Well, these bikes that you have mentioned aren't in this category. This is a 1000cc, 998cc to be exact, inline-four. Other bikes are all smaller. So this bike would be in a category above these bikes, so you can't really compare them. So just so you know. But if I had to pick between all those bikes, I would buy the Triumph Triple R, and I'd be done with it. So now you know. Here's another good question. Dizzy Goof. Does the chassis feel different from a CBR frame? Well, we're riding so slow today that you're never going to know a difference. But if you're wheeling around the racetrack or on a good canyon road somewhere, you're absolutely going to feel a difference. And yes, the chassis feels many 1000% different than a CBR chassis. So there you go. If you ride slow, you're never going to know the difference. If you haul ass, you will know the difference. CBR frame's better. Ricardo Manuel Nito. How would you compare the CB1000R to the CB650R? Well, I haven't ridden the CB650R yet. We'll be riding that motorcycle later on in May. So stay tuned for a review, first ride review on this channel and motorcyclistonline.com. We'll give you some real world MPG comparisons then, and I'll tell you which one I would buy of the two, and if it wheelies. I'm going to tell you right now it's probably going to wheelie. Will IM158 asks if the 08 motor is still any good. Yes, the 08 motor is very good. This bike doesn't have the 08 motor though. It has the 06-07 engine, which is a little bit smaller bore, a little bit longer stroke. I personally would rather have seen this bike with the 2008-2016 engine. It's smoother, has broader power, more compact, better engine. So I would have put that engine in here. I don't know why Honda didn't. Is the bike comfortable for a long ride? Asks SHUKRIAIDIL92. The bike is cozy for around town riding. I wouldn't ride to Arizona on this bike though. The seat pan's a little bit short from front to back. It is comfier for around town, definitely not bad by any means, but the seat pan's a little short, doesn't have a windscreen, the engine vibrates a little bit, there's no cruise control. I would not ride this bike for a long time, but I would ride 120 miles, 140 miles, do a day ride on it, no problem. Alright guys, that is it from this edition of MC Commute on Honda's 2018 CB1000R. Thank you for watching, everyone. Please leave a comment. Our Motorcyclist Mag staff will do their best to reply to you guys, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for watching.